Don't you dare pity me. Ethan's voice cracked as Madison Vale stood frozen outside his truck window, staring at the pink backpack. The eviction noticed the child's inhaler scattered across the passenger seat. Snow slammed against the parking garage concrete. Her hand trembled on the fogged glass. "You're living in your truck," she whispered. "You didn't see anything tonight." His eyes were hollow, desperate. "Walk away, Ms. Vale. Forget I exist." But she'd already seen the drawing taped to his dashboard, a little girl holding his hand under a yellow sun. And she'd already seen the court document half hidden beneath it, emergency custody hearing. Final notice. "Who's trying to take her from you?" Ethan's silence shattered everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and stay with me until the end of this story. Comment below with your city name so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now let me tell you what happened that night and why it changed everything. Ethan Brooks didn't answer Madison's question because the answer would destroy him. He sat there in his truck engine off heat, long gone, wearing the same Navy work uniform he'd worn for 16 hours straight. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Through the fogged window, Madison could see his jaw working, teeth clenched, fighting something invisible. "Get out," Madison said. "What?" "Get out of the truck, Ethan. Please." He shook his head. "I have to pick up Sophie in 4 hours. Mrs. Ruiz needs me there by 6 a.m. If I'm late, if she thinks I'm unreliable..." "Ethan, get out." Something in her voice made him obey. He opened the door slowly, stepping into the freezing garage. Up close, Madison could see things she'd missed through glass. The exhaustion carved into his face. The coffee stains on his collar. The hole in his left work boot covered with duct tape. He was 42 years old and looked 60. "Show me the court document," Madison said. "No, Eshton." "Ethan." "I said no." His voice rose, echoing off concrete pillars. "You want to help. You want to fix this. You can't. People like you see people like me and you think throwing money at it will make it go away. But you don't understand what you're looking at. Then make me understand." Ethan laughed a broken sound. "You're standing in a $1,000 coat asking a man who sleeps in his truck to make you understand poverty. You think understanding changes anything." Madison flinched. He was right. Her coat cost $1,800. Her car, parked 3 spaces away, cost more than he'd make in 5 years. "I saw Sophie's name on your emergency contact form," she said quietly. "I saw her listed as your niece." Ethan's expression crumbled. "How did you..." "I'm the CEO. I have access." She took a step closer. "Your sister's name was listed as Angela, past tense. And there's a note flagged in your file from 3 months ago. Employee requested bereavement leave, sister deceased. You took 2 days off. That's all they'd give me. You buried your sister and came back to work 2 days later. I had bills." His voice was hollow. "Angela was gone. Sophie was terrified. The state was already circling. I couldn't look unstable, couldn't miss work, couldn't show weakness." He turned away. "So I buried my baby sister on a Tuesday and cleaned toilets on Thursday. That's what people like me do, Ms. Vale. We bury our dead and keep moving because stopping means losing everything else." Madison felt something crack in her chest. "The court document," she said again. "Please." Ethan reached into the truck and pulled out a folder. His hand shook as he handed it to her. Inside was a legal filing dated 1 week ago. Petition for emergency custody modification. Petitioner Kevin Marcus Wade, biological father. Respondent Ethan Michael Brooks, maternal and uncle current guardian. Madison's eyes scanned the document. The language was clinical, brutal. Respondent demonstrates financial instability and inadequate housing arrangements. Recent evidence suggests respondent may be homeless or residing in a vehicle. Employment consists of overnight custodial work, leaving the minor child in the care of non-family members for extended periods. Petitioner seeks immediate custody transfer to provide stable 2-parent household environment. 2-parent household. Madison looked up. He's married as of 3 weeks ago, to a woman he met on a dating app 2 months before that. Ethan's voice was acid. Her name is Crystal. She's 26. She works at a nail salon. Kevin is using her like a prop to look stable. And he wants Sophie because my sister had a life insurance policy, $22,000. It goes to Sophie's legal guardian. Ethan's hands curled into fists. Kevin didn't visit Angela once in the last 5 years. Not when she was fighting addiction, not when she got clean, not when she relapsed. He didn't come to her funeral. But the second he found out about that money, he filed for custody. Madison's stomach turned. That's legal, smart, everything I'm not. Ethan took the folder back. His lawyer is good, really good. She's already subpoenaed my bank records, my employment history, my rental history. They know I lost my apartment. They know I'm sleeping in my truck. They probably know I'm standing here talking to you right now. How would they know that? Ethan gestured toward the security camera mounted on the garage ceiling. Building has cameras everywhere. Kevin's lawyer requested footage 2 days ago, said it was relevant to determining my fitness as a guardian. Madison followed his gaze. The camera's red light blinked steadily. They were being recorded right now. So if I help you, Madison said slowly, if anyone sees us together, if there's any evidence that you're receiving assistance from me, they'll say I'm manipulating you, exploiting your sympathy, using Sophie as a sob story to get money from rich people. Ethan's voice was flat, and the judge will see a man who can't support himself, can't house himself, and now can't even solve his own problems without seducing his boss. Seducing, Madison's voice rose. That's insane. That's family court. Ethan stepped back toward his truck. Thank you for caring, Mrs. Vale. I mean that. But you need to walk away now. Go home. Forget you saw me. It's the only way this doesn't get worse. He started to climb back into the truck. When's the hearing? Madison asked. Ethan paused. 14 days. And if you lose, Kevin gets Sophie. I get supervised visitation once a month if I'm lucky. His voice broke. And Sophie learns that the world takes everyone she loves away from her, just like it took her mom. He closed the truck door. The engine coughed to life. Madison stood there as he drove past her taillights disappearing into the snow. She stood there for 10 minutes after he left, staring at that empty parking space, her mind racing through everything she just learned. 14 days. 2 weeks to save a child from a man who saw her as a paycheck. 2 weeks to help someone who refused to be helped. Madison pulled out her phone. 3:37 a.m. In 3 hours, the building would fill with executives and analysts and assistants, all of them preparing for the investor presentation that would determine the company's future. She had a 7 a.m. meeting with the board, an 8:30 call with venture capital firms, a 10 a.m. press briefing about the expansion. And all she could think about was a little girl named Sophie who was about to lose the only person who loved her. Madison walked to her car, but she didn't drive home. She drove to the address listed on Ethan's old rental application. 40 minutes through Chicago's South Side, through neighborhoods where streetlights flickered and died, where buildings sagged under the weight of neglect, where poverty wasn't hidden behind corporate language. It was right there, visible, undeniable. She found the building, a 3-story walk-up with boarded windows on the ground floor. The front door hung crooked on broken hinges. This was where Ethan had lived with Sophie. This was what he'd lost when the rent jumped 40%. Madison sat in her car engine running heat on and she pulled up her banking app. Her checking account balance stared back at her $847,293.52. She could write a check right now for Ethan's rent, Sophie's medicine, legal fees, everything. She could solve this problem in 10 minutes. But Kevin's lawyer would see the bank deposit, would question where it came from, would build a narrative about Ethan manipulating wealthy benefactors, about instability, about questions of character. Money wasn't the answer, at least not money given directly. Madison drove home as dawn broke over the city. She didn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen island with her laptop and started researching. Family court precedents in Illinois, emergency custody modification laws, income requirements for guardianship, housing stability definitions. She read for 4 hours straight. By the time she needed to leave for the office, she understood the problem completely. The system wasn't designed to help people like Ethan. It was designed to punish them for being poor. At 7 a.m., Madison walked into the boardroom. The board was already assembled. Grant Whitaker sat at the head of the table reviewing notes. Patricia Mills from HR was present. So was the company's general counsel, David Chen. "We have a situation," Grant said without preamble. Security flagged an incident in the parking garage. One of our custodial employees has been sleeping in his vehicle on company property for approximately 3 weeks. Madison's blood went cold. The employee's name is Ethan Brooks, Grant continued. He's been with us for 18 months. No disciplinary issues, but this is clearly a liability concern. If he's homeless, we need to terminate before it becomes a problem. He's not homeless, Madison said. Her voice came out sharper than intended. He's between housing situations. Grant raised an eyebrow. Is there a difference? Yes, he has a job. He's employed. He's experiencing temporary hardship. Temporary hardship that involves sleeping in our parking garage. Grant leaned forward. Madison, I understand you have compassion for these situations, but we have policies for a reason. If something happens, if he's injured on property, if there's an incident, we're liable. Then help him find housing. That's not our responsibility. Then whose responsibility is it? Madison's voice rose. We employ over 2,000 people. You're telling me we can't help one man who's working himself to death to provide for his family? Patricia Mills cleared her throat. Ms. Vale, our employee assistance program does offer referrals to social services. Referrals. Madison turned to her. You want to refer him to shelters with 6-month waiting lists, to housing programs that require proof of income he can't provide while he's living in his truck. We have legal exposure here, David Chen said quietly. If we provide direct financial assistance and something goes wrong, if there's any question of impropriety. Impropriety. Madison slammed her hand on the table. A man is sleeping in his truck in February, and you're worried about impropriety. The room went silent. Grant spoke carefully. Madison, are you personally involved with this employee? What? It's a simple question. You seem unusually invested in this situation. Madison's jaw clenched. I'm invested in not being the kind of company that throws people away when they're struggling. That's not what we're doing. Then what are you doing, Grant? She stood. Tell me. What's the compassionate interpretation of firing a man for being poor? Grant's expression hardened. The practical interpretation is protecting this company from liability and maintaining professional standards. We're 3 weeks from the biggest investor presentation in our history. We cannot afford distractions. Distractions, Madison laughed bitterly. Is that what human beings are to you? Human beings with proper boundaries, yes. Grant stood as well. I'm recommending immediate termination with 2 weeks severance. It's generous under the circumstances. No. I'm sorry. I said no, we're not firing him. Madison, this isn't your decision alone. Actually, it is. She looked around the table. I'm still CEO of this company, and I'm telling you, we're not terminating Ethan Brooks. Instead, we're going to create an emergency employee assistance fund. Patricia Mills blinked. A what? An assistance fund, anonymous applications, confidential review, help for employees facing temporary crisis, housing, medical, legal, whatever they need to stay stable. How much are we talking? Someone asked. I'm proposing an initial fund of $1 million. The room erupted. That's insane, Osal. We're trying to show fiscal discipline. The optics alone. Grant held up a hand, silencing everyone. Madison, I need you to think very carefully about what you're proposing. We're asking investors to trust us with their money. How do we explain $1 million charity fund? We explain that we invest in our people, that we recognize employee stability leads to better performance, lower turnover, higher productivity. That treating our workforce with dignity isn't charity, it's smart business. And when they ask whose idea this was, Grant's eyes were hard. When they ask why the CEO suddenly cares about the night janitor, the implication hung in the air. Madison felt rage building in her chest. Are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that appearances matter. And a female CEO advocating for a male employee she's been seen talking to privately after hours in parking garages. Grant shrugged. People will draw conclusions. Then let them draw conclusions. Madison's voice was ice. I'm proposing this fund because it's the right thing to do. If anyone has a problem with it, they can bring it to the board formally. I am bringing it to the board. Grant looked around the table. I'm calling for a vote. All in favor of rejecting this proposal and proceeding with termination of Ethan Brooks. 4 hands went up. All opposed, 2 hands, including Madison's. Motion passes, Grant said. Ethan Brooks will be terminated effective immediately. HR will process the severance paperwork today. Madison stared at him. You just destroyed that man's life. I protected this company. Grant gathered his papers. Meeting adjourned. Madison stood there as the board filed out. Patricia Mills paused at the door. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For what it's worth, I think you were right. But you voted with Grant. Patricia looked away. I have a mortgage, 2 kids in college. I can't afford to make enemies. She left. Madison was alone in the boardroom, staring at her reflection in the polished table. She'd been CEO for 3 years. She'd navigated hostile takeover attempts, market crashes, internal sabotage. She'd fought her way to the top of an industry that didn't want women leading. And she'd just lost a vote to help one man. No, she'd lost more than a vote. She'd lost herself. Madison pulled out her phone. She had Ethan's number from the employee directory. Her thumb hovered over the call button. What would she say? I'm sorry, but you're fired. I tried to help, but they voted against you. Good luck with the custody hearing. She couldn't make that call. Instead, she walked out of the boardroom, took the elevator down to the parking garage, and sat in her car. She sat there for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Then she made a different call. David Chen's office. It's Madison Vale. I need to speak with him. Now, 30 seconds later, David's voice came on the line. Madison, the board has already voted. I'm not calling about the vote. I'm calling about my employment contract. Silence. What about it? David asked carefully. Section 14, paragraph C. It stipulates that in the event of my resignation, I receive full vesting of my stock options and a severance package equal to 18 months' salary. Madison, what are you? I'm resigning, David. What? Effective immediately. Draft the paperwork. I'll sign it this afternoon. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Madison's voice was steady. I will not lead a company that fires people for being poor. I will not represent values I don't believe in. I'm done. The investor presentation is in 3 weeks. Grant can handle it. He clearly thinks he runs this company anyway. Madison, please think about this. Your career. My career. She laughed. David, I spent 15 years building a career that just voted to destroy a man's life. What exactly am I supposed to be proud of? She hung up. For the first time in 3 years, Madison felt like she could breathe. She drove to Mrs. Ruiz's apartment. It took 40 minutes and 3 wrong turns, but she found it. A small building in a neighborhood where children played in the street and laundry hung from fire escapes. She knocked on apartment 2B. An elderly woman answered, short, round, with kind eyes and flour on her hands. Can I help you? She asked in accented English. Are you Angela Ruiz? Yes. My name is Madison Vale. Madison paused. I'm Ethan Brooks's employer. Or I was. Can I come in? Mrs. Ruiz's expression shifted to concern. Is Ethan okay? I need to talk to you about Sophie. Mrs. Ruiz opened the door wider. Come in. The apartment was small but immaculate. A tiny kitchen, a living room with worn furniture and plastic-covered cushions. The smell of baking bread. And sitting at a small table, coloring carefully in a workbook, was Sophie. She looked exactly like her picture. Dark curls, enormous brown eyes, a pink shirt with a unicorn on it. She looked up at Madison. Who are you? I'm Madison. I'm a friend of your Uncle Ethan. Sophie's eyes narrowed. Uncle Ethan doesn't have friends. He says friends leave. The words hit Madison like a physical blow. Mrs. Ruiz touched Sophie's shoulder gently. Mija, go finish your homework in my bedroom, please. Sophie gathered her coloring book and left, but not before giving Madison one more suspicious look. She's protective, Mrs. Ruiz said, sitting down. Ethan is all she has. I know. Madison sat across from her. Mrs. Ruiz, I need to know everything. The custody case. Kevin Wade. What's really happening? Mrs. Ruiz sighed. That man is poison. He didn't want Sophie when Angela was alive. Didn't help, didn't care, but now he smells money. The insurance settlement. $22,000. Angela wanted it for Sophie's future. College. A car when she's older. Safety. Mrs. Ruiz's hands trembled. Kevin will spend it in 6 months. Drugs, gambling. That new wife of his likes expensive things. And the court doesn't see that. The court sees a married couple with an apartment and steady jobs. They see Ethan sleeping in his truck. Mrs. Ruiz's eyes filled with tears. I told Ethan I would testify for him. I told him I'd explain that Sophie is loved, that she's safe, that he's a good man. But his lawyer says it's not enough. Why not? Because Kevin's lawyer will ask me questions. How many nights does Sophie stay with you? How often is Ethan late picking her up? Have you ever seen him exhausted? Have you ever worried about his ability to care for her? Mrs. Ruiz wiped her eyes. And I'll have to tell the truth. Yes, he's exhausted. Yes, I worry. Yes, he works too hard and sleeps too little and sacrifices everything. And Kevin's lawyer will twist all of that into proof that Ethan is unfit. Madison felt her throat tighten. When's the hearing? 13 days now, October 19th. 13 days. Madison stood. Thank you for telling me. Can you help him? Mrs. Ruiz asked desperately. Can you do anything? Madison looked toward the bedroom where Sophie was hiding. I don't know, but I'm going to try. She left the apartment and sat in her car, mind racing. She just quit her job. She just lost her entire career. And she had 13 days to save a child from a system designed to fail her. Madison pulled out her laptop and started making a list. What Ethan needs. Stable housing, documented, verifiable. Consistent income, proof of employment, financial stability. Character witnesses, people who can testify to his fitness as guardian. Legal representation better than what he currently has. What I have? 18 months salary and severance, approximately $2.7 million. Stock options worth another $4 million. Connections to family law attorneys. Time. Rage Madison started typing. First email to her personal attorney. Subject line, need family law specialist immediately. Second email to a real estate agent she'd worked with years ago. Subject line, need apartment, south side, available, immediately, budget, irrelevant. Third email to herself. Subject line, don't fuck this up. She was about to hit send when her phone rang. Ethan. Her heart stopped. She answered. Hello. You got me fired. His voice was shaking. HR just called. They said I'm terminated, effective immediately. What did you do? Ethan, I tried to stop them. You tried. He laughed, but it was broken, desperate. You tried, Ms. Vale. I just lost my job. The only thing proving I could support Sophie. The custody hearing is in 13 days, and Kevin's lawyer is going to put terminated from employment in front of a judge, and I'm going to lose her. I quit. Silence. What? I quit my job this morning after they voted to fire you. Madison's voice was steady. I'm not part of that company anymore. Why would you? Ethan's voice cracked. Why would you do that? Because I couldn't be the person who signed off on destroying your life. More silence. Then Ethan said quietly, you don't understand what you've done. I understand exactly. No, you don't. His voice was hollow. You just tied yourself to me publicly. When Kevin's lawyer finds out the CEO quit the same day I was fired, they're going to say we're involved. They're going to say you quit to help me. They're going to say I manipulated you, seduced you, exploited you. And the judge is going to look at that and see a man who's so desperate, he's using everyone around him. Madison's stomach dropped. I didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't think. You just acted, like rich people always do. Like my problems are something you can fix by making grand gestures. Ethan's voice broke. I asked you to walk away. I begged you, and you did the one thing guaranteed to make this worse. Ethan, the line went dead. Madison sat there, phone in her hand, realizing what she'd done. She'd tried to save him, and she might have just destroyed everything. Madison called Ethan back 17 times. He didn't answer. She drove to Mrs. Ruiz's apartment, but the door stayed closed. She went to the parking garage where he used to sleep. Empty. She tried the building where he used to work. Security wouldn't let her in. By noon, she understood what Ethan had done. He'd disappeared. Cut contact. Protected himself the only way he knew how. She'd lost him. Madison sat in her car outside a coffee shop she'd never been to in a neighborhood she'd never visited and realized she had no plan. She'd quit her job on an impulse. She tried to help and made everything worse. She was exactly what Ethan had called her, a rich person, making grand gestures without thinking about consequences. Her phone buzzed. David Chen. The board accepted your resignation, he said. You have 48 hours to clear your office. Grant wants your access cards by end of day. Fine. Madison, are you sure about this? There's still time to... I'm sure. She hung up and stared at her phone. Her entire life had been that job. 15-hour days, weekend calls, sacrificing relationships, health, sleep, all for a company that had just fired a man for being poor. What had she been building? Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She answered. Hello, is this Madison Vale? A woman's voice. Young sharp. Yes, who's this? My name is Cassandra Torres. I'm the attorney representing Kevin Wade in the Brooks custody case. The woman's tone was pleasant, professional, poisonous. I understand you recently resigned from Vale Industries, the same day Ethan Brooks was terminated. Interesting timing. Madison's blood went cold. How did you... I make it my business to know everything about my cases, Ms. Vale, including who's involved. Cassandra paused. I'm calling as a courtesy. I'll be filing an amended petition tomorrow. It will include information about Mr. Brooks' recent employment termination and his apparent relationship with a former employer who quit under suspicious circumstances. There is no relationship. Of course not. Just like there was no reason for you to quit the same day he was fired. Just like there was no reason for you to visit Angela Ruiz's apartment this morning. Just like there was no reason for you to be seen in a parking garage having intimate conversations with my client's opponent at 2 a.m. Madison's stomach dropped. You've been following me. I don't need to follow you, Ms. Vale. Security cameras are everywhere. Social media is everywhere. People talk. Cassandra's voice turned cold. And when they talk to a judge, they're going to say Ethan Brooks is a desperate man who seduced a wealthy woman to solve his problems. They're going to say he's manipulative, unstable, unfit. That's not true. Truth is what I make it in court. And right now you are helping me build a beautiful narrative. Cassandra laughed softly. Thank you for that. Really, you just made my job much easier. The line went dead. Madison sat there, hands shaking. Every move she'd made had been wrong. Every attempt to help had backfired. Ethan had warned her. He'd begged her to walk away. And she'd ignored him because she thought she knew better. Because she thought money and power could fix anything. Her phone rang again. This time she recognized the number. Mrs. Ruiz. Hello. Ms. Vale, you need to come back. Now. Mrs. Ruiz's voice was tight with panic. It's Sophie. She heard about Ethan losing his job. She's having an asthma attack. Bad one. I can't get it under control. Where's Ethan? I don't know. He's not answering. Please, I need help getting her to the hospital. I'm coming. Don't move. Madison broke every speed limit driving back to that apartment. She ran 3 red lights. She didn't care. By the time she reached the building, her heart was hammering. Mrs. Ruiz met her at the door, Sophie in her arms. The little girl's lips were blue. Her breathing came in horrible, wheezing gasps. Her eyes were wide with terror. How long has she been like this? Madison demanded. 10 minutes. The inhaler isn't working. I called 911, but they said 20-minute wait. Give her to me. Madison took Sophie and ran for her car. She laid the little girl across the back seat, fastened the seatbelt, and drove. Mrs. Ruiz called directions to the nearest emergency room. Madison followed them on autopilot, checking the rearview mirror every 5 seconds. Sophie's breathing was getting worse. Stay with me, sweetheart, Madison said. Her voice shook. Stay with me. We're almost there. Sophie's small hand reached forward, grabbing Madison's sleeve. Her eyes locked on Madison's in the mirror. Uncle Ethan, she whispered. I'll find him. I promise. Just breathe. Please breathe. Sophie's hand went slack. Madison pressed the accelerator to the floor. She reached the hospital in 4 minutes. She carried Sophie through the emergency room doors, screaming for help. Nurses appeared instantly. They took Sophie from her arms, rushed her behind swinging doors. Left Madison standing alone in the waiting room. She collapsed into a plastic chair, hands covered in Sophie's sweat, and pulled out her phone. She called Ethan again. No answer. She texted, Sophie is in the ER, asthma attack. She needs you, please. No response. She called again. Again. On the 7th call, he answered. What? His voice was raw, broken. Sophie's in the hospital, Northwestern Memorial. She had an asthma attack. Mrs. Ruiz couldn't control it. I brought her to the ER. You what? I brought her. Why were you at Mrs. Ruiz's apartment? Ethan's voice rose. I told you to stay away. I told you. She was dying, Ethan. Her lips were blue. She couldn't breathe. What was I supposed to do? Silence. Then Ethan said quietly, I'm on my way. He arrived 12 minutes later. Madison saw him burst through the emergency room doors, wild-eyed, terrified. He ran to the reception desk. Sophie Brooks, 6 years old, asthma. Where is she? The nurse checked her computer. She's being stabilized. Are you a family? I'm her guardian. I need to see ID. Ethan fumbled for his wallet, hands shaking so badly he dropped it twice. The nurse examined his driver's license, checked her records, made a phone call. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, she said, Room 7, through those doors. Ethan didn't look at Madison. He ran. Madison stayed in the waiting room, watching through the small window in the door. She could see Ethan reach Sophie's bed, could see him take her small hand, could see his shoulders shake as he broke down. A doctor appeared next to Madison, young, tired professional. Are you family? She asked. No, Madison paused. I brought her in. Good call. Another 10 minutes and we'd be having a different conversation. The doctor checked her tablet. She's stabilized now. We're giving her oxygen and monitoring her levels. She'll need to stay overnight for observation. What caused it? Stress, most likely. Her guardian mentioned she's been under a lot of emotional strain recently. Sometimes that triggers attacks in children with asthma. The doctor looked at Madison. Are you the one who quit your job today? Madison blinked. How did you go? Sophie kept asking for the lady who leaves. Said her uncle told her you left your job because of them. The doctor's expression was unreadable. She thinks it's her fault. Madison felt her throat close. Can I see her? She asked. That's up to her guardian. Madison looked through the window again. Ethan was sitting beside Sophie's bed, holding her hand, whispering something Madison couldn't hear. Sophie's eyes were closed, oxygen mask covering her small face. Madison turned and walked out of the hospital. She sat in her car in the parking lot for 2 hours watching the emergency room entrance, waiting for Ethan to come out. When he finally emerged, it was past midnight. He walked slowly, exhaustion in every step. Madison got out of her car. Ethan, he stopped, turned. His face was a mask of controlled rage. You need to stop, he said quietly. You need to stop trying to help. You need to stop showing up. You need to disappear from my life before you destroy what's left of it. Sophie's okay. She's stable. They're keeping her overnight. Ethan's hands curled into fists. The doctor asked me questions about Sophie's home environment, about stress factors, about instability, and you know what I had to tell her? Madison said nothing. I had to tell her that Sophie's guardian lost his job today, that we're facing a custody battle, that a strange woman she barely knows quit her job and keeps inserting herself into our lives. Ethan's voice cracked. I had to watch that doctor write everything down in Sophie's file, notes that Kevin's lawyer will subpoena, evidence that Sophie's environment is unstable, stressful, harmful. I was trying to save her. You brought her to the hospital and made everything worse. Ethan stepped closer. Do you understand that every kind thing you do, every gesture, every attempt to help, it's ammunition for Kevin's lawyer? She called me today. Did she call you too? Madison nodded. Then you know. She knows everything. She knows you quit. She knows you brought Sophie to the hospital. She knows we've been meeting late at night. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. And she's going to stand in front of a judge in 12 days and paint me as a manipulative predator who uses his niece to exploit wealthy women. And you gave her everything she needs to do it. What do you want me to do? Nothing. I want you to do nothing. I want you to go back to your penthouse and your perfect life and forget I exist. Ethan turned away. Please, if you ever did cared at all, just leave us alone. He walked to his truck and drove away. Madison stood in the parking lot alone, realizing she'd just lost the only battle that mattered. She drove home, showered, changed clothes, sat on her couch staring at nothing. At 3 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Hello, Ms. Vale, this is Nurse Patterson from Northwestern Memorial. Sophie Brooks is asking for you. Madison's heart stopped. What? She woke up about 20 minutes ago. She's stable, but she's agitated. She keeps asking for the lady who brought her here. Her guardian stepped out to get coffee. I thought you might want to know. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Madison broke every speed limit again. She reached the hospital, navigated to Sophie's room, and stopped in the doorway. Sophie was sitting up in bed, oxygen mask pushed aside, coloring in a hospital-provided activity book. She looked up when Madison entered. You came back, Sophie said quietly. You asked for me. People don't usually come back when I ask. Sophie set down her crayon. My mom didn't. My dad didn't. Why did you? Madison pulled a chair beside the bed. Because you asked. Sophie studied her with those enormous brown eyes. Uncle Ethan says you're making things worse. He's right. Are you going to leave? Madison wanted to lie, wanted to promise she'd stay forever. But Sophie had been lied to enough. I don't know, Madison said honestly. I want to help, but every time I try, I make things harder for your uncle. So maybe leaving is the right thing. Sophie picked up her crayon again. That's what my mom said, that leaving was the right thing. She said she was going somewhere to get better. She said she'd come back. Sophie, she didn't come back. Sophie's small hand moved across the paper, adding a yellow sun to her drawing. Uncle Ethan says she couldn't, says it wasn't her fault, but I think she just didn't want to. Madison's throat tightened. Your mom loved you. How do you know? Because your uncle fought to keep you, and he wouldn't have done that if your mom hadn't loved you first. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Are you Uncle Ethan's girlfriend? No. Do you want to be? Madison blinked. What? The kids at school say when grown-ups talk late at night and one of them quits their job and they fight a lot, it means they like each other. Sophie looked up. Do you like Uncle Ethan? Madison didn't know how to answer that. She barely knew Ethan. They'd spoken maybe 10 times, but something had happened in that parking garage, something that had cracked open her carefully controlled life and shown her how hollow it had become. I think your uncle is a good man, Madison said carefully, and I think you're very lucky to have him. He's lucky too. He just doesn't know it yet. Sophie held up her drawing. Look. Madison looked. The picture showed 3 stick figures standing under a yellow sun, one tall figure with dark hair, one small figure with pigtails, one figure with long hair and a dress. Who's that? Madison asked, pointing to the third figure. You. Sophie said it like it was obvious. You're the one who came back. Madison felt tears burning her eyes. Sophie, honey, I'm not part of your family. Not yet. Sophie put the drawing on the bedside table. But Uncle Ethan looks at you the way my mom looked at my dad before everything went bad. Like you're scary and important. Scary. People who can hurt you are always scary. Sophie lay back against her pillows. My mom said love is just being scared someone will leave, but hoping they won't. Before Madison could respond, the door opened. Ethan walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. He froze when he saw Madison. What are you doing here? The nurse called. Sophie asked for me. Ethan's jaw tightened. He set the coffee down and turned to Sophie. Mija, why did you ask the nurse to call her? Sophie shrugged. I wanted to see if she'd come back. And? She did. Ethan closed his eyes. When he opened them, his expression was carefully blank. Ms. Vale, thank you for coming. But Sophie needs rest. You should go. Uncle Ethan. Sophie enough. His voice was gentle but firm. Say goodbye to Ms. Vale. Sophie looked at Madison. Will you come back again? Madison glanced at Ethan. He shook his head once, a tiny movement. I don't know, sweetheart, Madison said honestly. That means no. Sophie pulled the blanket up to her chin. Everyone says I don't know when they mean no. Madison stood. She wanted to promise, wanted to fight, wanted to do something. But Ethan was right. Every time she tried to help, she made things worse. She walked to the door. Sophie's small voice stopped her. My mom said I don't know too, but at least you told the truth about it. Madison left before she started crying. She made it to her car before the tears came. She sat in the hospital parking lot, hands on the steering wheel, sobbing. Not delicate tears, ugly, gasping sobs that shook her entire body. She'd failed. She'd tried to help and failed completely. And now a little girl who'd lost her mother was learning to protect herself by expecting everyone to leave. Madison pulled out her phone and called the one person she trusted. Her lawyer, Rebecca Huang, answered on the second ring. Madison, it's 4 a.m. What's wrong? Everything. Madison wiped her eyes. I need help, not for me, for someone else. What kind of help? Madison explained everything. The parking garage, Sophie, the custody battle, Kevin Wade, her resignation, Cassandra Torres's phone call. Every detail, every mistake, every moment she'd made things worse. Rebecca listened in silence. When Madison finished, Rebecca said quietly, You're in love with him. What? No, I barely know him. Madison, you quit your job. You're sitting in a hospital parking lot crying. You just spent 20 minutes explaining every detail of this man's life. You're in love with him. That's not... Madison stopped. Even if I was, it doesn't matter. He's right. I'm making everything worse. Then stop making it worse. How? By actually helping instead of performing helping. Rebecca's voice was sharp. You quit your job to make a statement. You showed up at his apartment to prove you cared. You brought his niece to the hospital to be the hero. Everything you've done has been about you feeling good about yourself. The words hit like a slap. Rebecca, I'm not finished. You want to actually help this man? Then do it invisibly, anonymously, without him knowing. Rebecca paused. You have $3 million in severance. Use it, but use it smart. How? First, hang up and let me work. Second, stop calling Ethan. Stop showing up. Disappear completely. Third, trust me. Rebecca's tone softened. I'll call you in 6 hours. Go home. Get some sleep. And Madison, yeah, stop trying to save him. Just love him quietly and let me handle the rest. The line went dead. Madison sat there, Rebecca's words echoing in her head. Stop performing helping. Love him quietly. She drove home. She didn't sleep. Instead, she sat at her kitchen counter with her laptop and started researching everything she could about custody law, family court procedures, and the legal system Kevin Wade was using to steal a child. At 9 a.m., Rebecca called back. I found you a lawyer, she said. Best family law attorney in Illinois, Catherine Morris. She usually works for celebrities and billionaires, but I called in a favor. She's willing to take Ethan's case. He won't know it's you. I've set up an anonymous fund through a nonprofit I work with. It's designed for emergency family law cases, completely confidential. Catherine will approach Ethan as a pro bono case referred through the nonprofit. Madison felt hope flicker. Will he believe that Catherine's office handles 3 pro bono cases a year? It's legitimate. As long as you stay far away and keep your mouth shut, he'll never know. Rebecca paused. But Madison, you need to understand something. This might not work. Kevin's lawyer is good. The case is strong. Even with Catherine's help, Ethan might still lose. I know. And if he wins, you still can't be with him. Not for months, maybe years. The court will be watching. Any relationship between you two will be evidence of impropriety. I know. So you're willing to spend $3 million helping a man who might never speak to you again? Madison didn't hesitate. Yes. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, okay, I'll set it up. Catherine will contact Ethan today. Stay away from him. Don't call, don't text. Don't show up at the hospital or Mrs. Ruiz's apartment. Disappear. For how long? Until the custody hearing is over, until Sophie is safe, until Ethan doesn't need you anymore. Rebecca's voice gentled. Can you do that? Madison thought about Sophie's drawing, 3 figures under a yellow sun. I can do that, she said. She hung up and looked around her penthouse. Expensive furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen she never cooked in, a life built on success that meant nothing. For the first time in 15 years, Madison had no job, no schedule, no purpose. She had 11 days until the custody hearing. 11 days to stay invisible. 11 days to prove that loving someone didn't mean rescuing them. It meant trusting them to fight their own battle while you held the net below. Madison opened her laptop and transferred $3 million to Rebecca's nonprofit fund. She watched the number disappear from her account. Then she blocked Ethan's number. Not because she didn't care, because she cared too much to keep hurting him. And for the first time since that night in the parking garage, Madison understood what Ethan had been trying to tell her. Love wasn't about grand gestures. It was about stepping back and letting someone be strong enough to save themselves, even when it destroyed you to watch. 3 days passed before Catherine Morse made contact. Madison knew because Rebecca texted her a single word: done. Madison sat in her apartment, staring at her phone, fighting every instinct to call Ethan and ask if the lawyer had reached him. She didn't. She'd promised to disappear, and for once she was keeping a promise. Her phone rang at 2 in the morning on the 4th day. Unknown number. Madison's heart stopped. Hello. Is this Madison Vale? A man's voice, rough, angry. Who is this Kevin Wade, Sophie's father? He said it like a threat. We need to talk. Madison's blood went cold. How did you get this number? Same way I get everything. Money talks. You're the bitch who's been helping Ethan write the CEO who quit her fancy job. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play stupid. My lawyer told me everything. You and Ethan sneaking around parking garages, meeting late at night. Real touching story. Kevin laughed. But here's the thing, I don't care who Ethan's fucking. I just want what's mine. Sophie isn't yours. The insurance money is 22 grand. That's mine. Angela promised it to me before she died. That's a lie. Prove it. Angela's dead. Can't exactly ask her. Can we? Kevin's voice turned cold. So here's the deal. You want Ethan to keep Sophie fine. Pay me $30,000. Cash. I'll drop the custody case sign over all rights, disappear forever. Madison's hand tightened on the phone. You're trying to sell your daughter? I'm offering a business arrangement. 30 grand, and Ethan gets what he wants. You get to play hero. I get compensated for my time. Everyone wins. That's extortion. That's smart business. You got rich doing it. Don't act shocked when other people do the same. Kevin paused. You got 48 hours to decide. After that, I'm taking Sophie, cashing that insurance check, and Ethan can visit her once a month if he's lucky. Your choice. The line went dead. Madison sat there, hands shaking. Kevin Wade had just offered to sell his daughter for $30,000. And the worst part was, it would work. $30,000 was nothing to Madison. She could wire it today. Problem solved, except it wouldn't be solved. Kevin would take the money and come back in 6 months asking for more. Or he'd take the money and still fight for custody. Or he'd take the money and disappear, leaving Sophie wondering why everyone had a price. Madison called Rebecca. He called you? Rebecca's voice was tight. How the hell did he get your number? He said money talks. Rebecca, he wants $30,000 to drop the case. Absolutely not. Do not give him a dime. But if it saves Sophie, it won't save Sophie. It'll teach her that love can be bought and sold. It'll teach Ethan that he can't protect her without your money. It'll teach Kevin that extortion works. Rebecca's voice was sharp. Madison, listen to me. The hearing is in 8 days. Catherine is building a real case. Character witnesses, employment verification, housing stability. What housing stability? Ethan's sleeping in his truck. Not anymore. Rebecca paused. Catherine arranged temporary housing through a nonprofit. Small apartment, south side, fully furnished. Ethan moved in yesterday. Madison's throat tightened. He accepted it. He didn't have a choice. Catherine explained that the court requires stable housing for guardianship. It's a 6-month lease with an option to extend. Rent is covered by an emergency family support grant. Does he know? He knows it's legitimate nonprofit assistance. That's all he needs to know. Rebecca's voice softened. Madison, you did good. You stepped back. You let the system work. Don't ruin it now by giving Kevin Wade money. Then what do I do? Nothing. Stay invisible. Let Catherine handle it. Madison hung up and spent the next 3 hours pacing her apartment. Kevin's threat echoed in her mind. 48 hours. Then he'd take Sophie unless Madison paid. Unless she broke her promise to stay invisible. Unless she proved Ethan right about rich people always needing to be heroes. She didn't pay. At dawn, she went for a run. 15 miles through Chicago streets, pushing her body until her lungs burned and her legs shook. She ran past the building where she used to work, past the parking garage where she'd found Ethan, past the hospital where Sophie had asked if she'd come back. She ran until she couldn't think anymore. When she got home, her phone showed 6 missed calls from unknown numbers. Kevin, probably. Escalating the pressure. Madison blocked them all. That night, she dreamed about Sophie's drawing. 3 figures under a yellow sun, but in the dream, the third figure was erasing itself, disappearing line by line, until only 2 remained. She woke up at 4 a.m. covered in sweat. Her phone was ringing. Rebecca. "Turn on the news," Rebecca said. "Channel 5, now." Madison grabbed her remote. Local news. A reporter standing outside a courthouse. Developments in the Wade custody case have taken a dramatic turn. Kevin Wade, who was seeking custody of his deceased girlfriend's daughter, was arrested this morning on outstanding warrants for unpaid child support from a previous relationship. Sources say Wade owes over $40,000 to his ex-wife and has been avoiding payment for 3 years. Madison's hand flew to her mouth. "How?" she started. Catherine's investigators found it. Took them 2 days of digging, but they found his ex-wife in Indiana. She'd been trying to collect for years. Rebecca's voice held grim satisfaction. Kevin's lawyer tried to suppress it, but the judge allowed it as evidence of character. The custody hearing just became very different. Does this mean... It means Kevin Wade is about to lose everything and Ethan has a real chance. Madison felt tears burning her eyes. "Rebecca, don't thank me. Thank Catherine. And don't call Ethan. You're still invisible, remember?" The call ended. Madison sat on her couch, staring at the TV as the news cycled through other stories. Kevin Wade's arrest, his mugshot, his lawyer's no comment. Somewhere in the city, Ethan was probably watching the same broadcast, probably allowing himself to hope for the first time in months. And Madison couldn't be there to see it. 5 days until the hearing. Madison spent them in her apartment ordering takeout, avoiding social media, ignoring calls from former colleagues asking what happened. Grant Whitaker left 3 voicemails asking her to discuss the transition. She deleted them without listening. Her mother called from Florida. "Darling, I saw the announcement about your resignation. What on earth are you doing? Taking time to figure things out." "Figure things out, Madison. You're 41 years old. You had a career, a reputation, and you threw it away for what some moral crusade. Something like that." "Well, I hope it was worth it." Her mother's voice was cold. "Call me when you come to your senses." The line went dead. Madison looked around her penthouse. Her mother was right. She'd thrown away 15 years of work. For what? For a man who'd told her to stay away. For a child who thought she was just another person who'd leave. For the first time in her life, she'd acted without calculating the return on investment. And she had no idea if it was worth it. The night before the hearing, Madison broke her own rule. She drove to Mrs. Ruiz's building and parked across the street. She didn't get out. She just sat there watching the windows, wondering if Sophie was inside. At 8:30, the building's front door opened. Ethan walked out holding Sophie's hand. The little girl wore a pink dress and white tights. Her hair was pulled back in careful braids. She looked small and scared and heartbreakingly brave. Ethan knelt down eye level with her. Madison couldn't hear what he said, but she saw Sophie nod. Saw Ethan pull her into a hug that lasted a long time. Then they walked to Ethan's truck and drove away. Madison sat there for another hour, tears streaming down her face, praying to a God she wasn't sure she believed in. Please, please let him win. Please let Sophie stay safe. Please let this one thing go right. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. Madison woke at 5, unable to sleep. She showered, made coffee she didn't drink, paced her apartment. At 8:30, Rebecca called. "Catherine just arrived at the courthouse. Ethan's already there with Sophie. The judge is Marilyn Hoffman. She's tough but fair. This is going to come down to evidence and character." "What are Sophie's chances?" Rebecca was quiet. "Honestly, 60-40 in Ethan's favor. Kevin's arrest helps, but he's still the biological father. And Cassandra Torres is good. She's going to paint Ethan as unstable, unemployed, and potentially involved in an inappropriate relationship. But he's not. Doesn't matter. It's about perception." Rebecca paused. "Madison, there's something else. Catherine thinks Cassandra might call you as a witness." Madison's stomach dropped. "What? If she does, you have to tell the truth. But keep it simple. Yes, you knew Ethan was your employee. Yes, you resigned. No, you're not romantically involved. No, you didn't provide him financial assistance." "That's a lie." "No, it's not. You didn't provide him financial assistance. A nonprofit did. You donated to that nonprofit. The connection is invisible. Rebecca's voice was firm. If you admit to helping him directly, Cassandra will destroy him. You understand? I understand. Good. Stay by your phone. I'll update you when I know something. The call ended. Madison spent the next 3 hours staring at her phone. It didn't ring. She checked the news. Nothing. She checked her email, spam, and more messages from former colleagues. At 12:15, her phone finally rang. It's over, Rebecca said. Madison's heart stopped. And Judge Hoffman ruled in Ethan's favor, full custody. Kevin's parental rights remain intact, but he's granted supervised visitation only 2 hours per month, pending completion of parenting classes and payment of his outstanding child support. Madison's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor. Sophie gets to stay with Ethan. Sophie gets to stay with Ethan. Rebecca's voice was thick with emotion. Catherine said the judge was impressed by Ethan's character witnesses. Mrs. Ruiz testified. So did 3 of his former co-workers. So did Sophie's teacher. They all said the same thing: Ethan is a good man who loves that little girl more than anything. What about Cassandra? Did she call me? She tried, but Catherine blocked it, arguing that your involvement was peripheral and irrelevant to the core custody question. The judge agreed. Rebecca paused. Madison, it's done. Sophie's safe. You can breathe now. Madison realized she was crying, huge gasping sobs that shook her entire body. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, Rebecca. Don't thank me. You're the one who paid for it. Rebecca's voice gentled. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Are you going to tell Ethan? Madison thought about Sophie's drawing. 3 figures under a yellow sun. No, she said quietly. He doesn't need to know. He won on his own merit. Let him have that. Madison, I mean it. Don't tell Catherine to tell him. Let him believe it was the nonprofit. Let him believe he did this himself. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. You really love him, don't you? Madison wiped her eyes. It doesn't matter. Of course it matters. He told me to disappear, so I'm disappearing. Sophie's safe. That's all that counts. She hung up before Rebecca could argue. Madison sat on her floor surrounded by expensive furniture in an expensive apartment and felt more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. She'd won. Sophie was safe. Ethan had his daughter, and Madison had exactly what she'd always had: money, an empty home, and no one to share it with. 3 weeks passed. Madison stopped checking the news for updates about Ethan. She stopped driving past Mrs. Ruiz's building. She stopped torturing herself with what-ifs. She'd done what she could. Now she needed to figure out what came next. Grant Whitaker called unexpectedly. Madison, I want to apologize. The board's decision to terminate Ethan Brooks was wrong. I see that now. Little late for that. I know. But I wanted you to know we've implemented that employee assistance fund you proposed. $500,000 to start. It's already helped 3 families avoid eviction. Madison felt something crack in her chest. That's good, Grant. It was your idea. You should get credit. I don't want credit. I just want people to be helped. Grant was quiet. For what it's worth, you were right, and I was wrong. I'm sorry. The apology meant nothing and everything. Madison thanked him and hung up. That night she made a decision. She couldn't go back to corporate life, couldn't spend another 15 years chasing profit margins and investor returns, but she could build something new. She called Rebecca. I want to start a nonprofit, employee crisis assistance, legal support, housing, medical, all of it, anonymous, accessible, real. How much are you thinking? Everything. My entire severance. All $4 million. Madison's voice was steady. I want to build something that helps people like Ethan before they end up sleeping in their trucks. Rebecca laughed softly. You're absolutely insane. You know that? Probably. Will you help me? Of course I'll help you. Someone needs to keep you from bankrupting yourself. Rebecca paused. Have you thought about a name? Madison looked at the drawing Sophie had given her, the one she'd taken from the hospital. 3 figures under a yellow sun. The Second Chance Fund, Madison said, for people who just need someone to believe they deserve another chance. I love it. I'll start the paperwork. Madison spent the next month building her nonprofit, filing papers, hiring staff, creating protocols. She threw herself into the work the same way she'd thrown herself into her corporate career, completely obsessively without restraint. She didn't think about Ethan. She tried not to anyway. At night alone in her apartment, she wondered if he thought about her. If Sophie ever asked about the lady who came back. If they were happy in their new apartment building, a life without her. She hoped they were happy. She hoped they'd forgotten her completely. 2 months after the custody hearing, Madison was in her new nonprofit office, a small space in a building on the south side, when her assistant knocked. "Someone here to see you, no appointment." "Who is it?" Her assistant hesitated. "He says his name is Ethan Brooks." Madison's heart stopped. "What? Should I tell him you're busy?" Madison stood slowly, her hands were shaking. "No, send him in." 30 seconds later, Ethan walked through her door. He looked different, rested. His clothes were clean pressed. His face had lost some of that exhaustion, but his eyes were the same careful, guarded, searching. "Ms. Vale," he said quietly. "Ethan." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "How did you find me?" Rebecca Huang's name is on the nonprofit paperwork. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. He stepped into the office looking around. "The Second Chance Fund. That's what you're calling it?" "Yes." "And you funded it with your severance money, all of it?" It wasn't a question. Madison didn't answer. Ethan turned to face her. "Catherine Morse told me the truth. About who paid for her services. About the nonprofit that wasn't really a nonprofit. About the apartment and the legal fees and everything." Madison's stomach dropped. Catherine had no right. She had every right. I asked her directly. Point blank. "Who's paying for this?" She tried to deflect, but I wouldn't let it go. Ethan's jaw tightened. "She finally told me 3 days ago. Said you donated to a fund that helped families in crisis. Said your donation was what made my case possible. It was legitimate. It was you." His voice was quiet, controlled. "Everything, the apartment, the lawyer, the investigators who found Kevin's arrest warrant, all of it was you." Madison said nothing. "I told you to stay away," Ethan continued. "I begged you not to help, and you did it anyway. I needed to do it myself." Ethan's voice cracked. "I needed to prove I could protect her without someone rescuing me. I needed to win that custody battle on my own merit, and you took that from me." The words hit like a physical blow. "I'm sorry," Madison whispered. "You're sorry," Ethan laughed bitterly. "You spent $3 million fixing my life, and you're sorry. I just wanted Sophie to be safe. Sophie is safe because of you. My apartment is because of you. My legal victory is because of you." Ethan's hands curled into fists. "Do you understand what that means? Everything good in my life right now exists because a wealthy woman felt sorry for me." "That's not..." "Then what is it?" Ethan stepped closer. "Tell me, Madison, what is this charity guilt? Some savior complex where you fix broken people to feel good about yourself?" Madison felt tears burning her eyes. "I love you." The words fell into silence. Ethan stared at her. "What?" "I love you." Madison's voice shook. "I love you, and I love Sophie, and I couldn't stand watching Kevin Wade destroy both of you. So I helped. And I'm sorry it hurt your pride. I'm sorry it made you feel small, but I'm not sorry I did it." Ethan's expression was unreadable. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. You know I clean buildings. You know I sleep in trucks. You know I'm poor and desperate, and I know you're the best man I've ever met." Madison's voice was fierce now. "I know you sacrificed everything for a child who wasn't yours. I know you worked yourself to exhaustion rather than ask for help. I know you loved Sophie enough to let her go if it meant she'd be safe. That's what I know." Ethan turned away. His shoulders were shaking. "I can't do this," he said quietly. "Do what?" "Be the project you fix. The good deed that makes you feel worthy." He looked back at her, and his eyes were full of pain. "I spent my whole life being invisible, being the help, being the person no one notices. And then you noticed me, and suddenly my whole life changed. But it didn't change because of me. It changed because of you." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Ethan's voice was hollow. "Tell me honestly, if you hadn't found me in that parking garage, would any of this have happened? Would Catherine Morse have taken my case? Would I have that apartment? Would Sophie still be mine?" Madison couldn't answer, because the truth was no. Without her money, Ethan probably would have lost everything. That's what I thought, Ethan said softly. He walked to the door, then stopped. Thank you for saving Sophie. I mean that. But I can't be with someone who sees me as something to save. I don't. Yes, you do. Maybe you don't mean to. Maybe you think it's love. But love doesn't come with a $3 million price tag. He opened the door. Ethan, wait. He didn't wait. He walked out of her office, out of her building, out of her life. Madison stood there alone, realizing she'd just lost the only thing that mattered. She'd saved Sophie. She'd destroyed any chance she had with Ethan. And she had no idea which choice was right. Madison didn't go home after Ethan left. She sat at her desk until her assistant knocked hesitantly at 7 p.m. Ms. Vale, should I lock up? I'll do it. Go home. The office emptied. Madison sat in the dark, staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed. Rebecca. I heard Ethan came to see you. Catherine called. She's furious with herself for telling him. It doesn't matter. Of course it matters. What did he say? That I took away his chance to win on his own. That love doesn't come with a $3 million price tag. Madison's voice was flat. He's right. He's an idiot. No, he's a man who spent his whole life invisible, and I made him a charity case. Madison closed her eyes. I thought I was helping. I was just making myself feel better. That's not true. Isn't it? Be honest, Rebecca. Did I help Ethan because he needed it, or because fixing his life made me feel less empty about my own? Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Both can be true. That's the problem. Madison hung up. She drove home. She didn't eat. She sat on her couch staring at Sophie's drawing, wondering how something so pure had turned into something so broken. At midnight, someone knocked on her door. Madison's heart jumped. She ran to the door, looking through the peephole. Mrs. Ruiz stood in the hallway, wringing her hands. Madison yanked the door open. Is Sophie okay? Sophie is fine. She is with Ethan. Mrs. Ruiz stepped inside without waiting for invitation. But you need to know something. Ethan came to my apartment after he left your office. He was crying. Madison's throat tightened. I didn't mean to hurt him. I know, but you need to understand what you did. Mrs. Ruiz's voice was gentle but firm. Ethan's father left when he was 8. His mother worked 3 jobs and still couldn't pay rent. They lived in shelters, Car's friends' couches. Ethan learned early that asking for help meant admitting defeat, that accepting charity meant you'd failed. I wasn't trying to make him feel like a failure, but you did, because you solved problems he needed to solve himself. Mrs. Ruiz sat down heavily. When Angela died, Ethan made himself a promise. He would never let Sophie feel the shame he felt growing up. Never let her see him as weak. Never let her learn that the world only helps people who can't help themselves. So I should have just let him lose her. No, you should have helped him help himself. Mrs. Ruiz met Madison's eyes. You gave him money. What he needed was partnership. You fixed his problems. What he needed was someone to stand beside him while he fixed them himself. The words landed like stones in Madison's chest. I don't know how to do that, Madison whispered. Then learn. Mrs. Ruiz stood. Because that man loves you. He's terrified of it and he's angry about it, but he loves you. And Sophie asks about you every single day. She does. Every morning. Is the lady coming back? I tell her I don't know. Because I don't. Mrs. Ruiz moved toward the door. But I hope you do, because Sophie has lost too many people already, and Ethan has spent too long believing he doesn't deserve good things. She left. Madison stood in her empty apartment, Mrs. Ruiz's words echoing in her mind. You gave him money. What he needed was partnership. Madison pulled out her phone. She typed a message to Ethan, then deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. What could she say that wouldn't sound like another attempt to fix things? Finally, she wrote, I'm sorry, you're right about everything. I won't contact you again. But if you ever need anything, not money, just a friend, I'm here. She hit send before she could overthink it. No response came. Madison forced herself to sleep. When she woke at 6 a.m., her phone showed one new message. From Ethan, Sophie wants to see you. Nothing else. No context. No warmth. Just 5 words. Madison's hands shook as she typed back. When Saturday, 10 a.m. The park on Morgan Street. Just you and Sophie. I won't be there. Madison stared at the message. He was giving her access to Sophie but removing himself from the equation. Testing her, seeing if she wanted Sophie or if she'd only ever wanted him. "I'll be there," she wrote. Saturday arrived cold and gray. Madison stood at the park entrance at 9:45, watching children play on equipment that looked like it might collapse. She spotted Sophie immediately, pink coat, purple hat, sitting on a bench beside Mrs. Ruiz. Madison walked over slowly. Sophie saw her and stood up. "You came back," Sophie said. "No warmth, just observation." "I said I would." "Lots of people say things." Sophie looked at Mrs. Ruiz. "Can I talk to her alone?" Mrs. Ruiz nodded. "I'll be right over there. You yell if you need me." She walked to a bench 20 feet away, giving them space but staying close. Sophie turned to Madison. "Uncle Ethan said you're the one who paid for our apartment. No point lying to a 6-year-old who'd already lost too much." "Yes." "He said you paid for the lawyer too." "Yes." "He said you spent all our money helping us." "Not all of it, but a lot." Madison sat down on the bench. "Are you mad at me?" Sophie sat beside her. "I don't know yet. I'm thinking about it." Despite everything, Madison almost smiled. "Take your time." Sophie was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "My mom used to buy me things when she felt bad about leaving, toys and candy and stuff. But then she'd leave again. Uncle Ethan says that's not love. That's guilt." The words cut deep. "Your uncle is very smart," Madison said quietly. "So did you buy us stuff because you felt guilty?" "No, I bought it because I couldn't stand watching the two of you suffer when I had the power to stop it." "That's still guilt." "Maybe. Or maybe it's love. I'm not sure I know the difference anymore." Sophie pulled out a piece of paper from her pocket. Her drawing. The 3 figures under the yellow sun. "I drew this in the hospital. Remember, Bayaham?" "I remember. I drew you because I thought you'd stay. But then you left. And then Uncle Ethan said you helped us, but you can't be part of our family because it's complicated." Sophie's voice was small. "Why is it always complicated?" Madison felt her throat closing. "Because your uncle has spent his whole life taking care of himself. And I came in and tried to take care of him, and that made him feel weak. And he's not weak. He's the strongest person I know. Stronger than you. Much stronger than me." Sophie studied her. "Do you love him?" "Yes." "Does he love you?" "I don't know." "He does." Sophie said it with the certainty only children have. "He talks about you when he thinks I'm asleep. He tells Mrs. Ruiz he doesn't know what to do, that you fixed everything, but now everything feels broken." Madison's heart clenched. "Sophie, I need you to understand something. I helped you and your uncle because I wanted to, not because I expected anything back, not because I wanted credit, just because you deserve help." "Okay. Okay. And if your uncle decides he doesn't want me around, I'll respect that. But I'll always care about you, both of you. That doesn't change." Sophie was quiet. Then she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything?" "If Uncle Ethan said you could be part of our family, would you want to?" Madison's eyes burned. "More than anything. Even though we're poor and we live in a small apartment and I have asthma and Uncle Ethan works weird hours, none of that matters to me. It matters to Uncle Ethan. He thinks you'll get tired of us." Sophie's voice dropped to a whisper. "Like my mom got tired of me." Madison knelt down eye level with Sophie. "Your mom didn't get tired of you. Your mom was sick. That's different." "How?" "Because sickness took your mom away. Not a choice. She would have stayed if she could." "How do you know?" "Because if she didn't love you, she wouldn't have made sure your uncle could take care of you. She wouldn't have set up that insurance. She wouldn't have picked the strongest, most stubborn, most loving person she knew to be your guardian." Madison wiped Sophie's tears. "Your mom loved you so much she made sure you'd be safe even after she was gone. That's not getting tired. That's the biggest love there is." Sophie threw her arms around Madison's neck and sobbed. Madison held her, this small girl who'd lost too much too young, and let her cry. When Sophie finally pulled back, her face was red and splotchy. "I want you to stay. Sophie, I want you to stay and be part of our family. I don't care if Uncle Ethan is mad. I don't care if it's complicated. I'm tired of people leaving. I know, sweetheart, so you have to fix it. Sophie's voice was fierce. You're a grown-up. You fixed everything else. Fix this. Madison felt something break open in her chest. I don't think I can. Why not? Because some things can't be fixed by throwing money at them. Some things require the other person to want them fixed too. Then make him want it. It doesn't work like that. Yes, it does. My teacher says if you want something, you have to try really hard and not give up. Sophie grabbed Madison by Madison's hands. Don't give up, please. I already gave up on my mom. I can't give up on you too. Madison pulled Sophie close again. Okay, I'll try, but I can't promise it'll work. That's okay, Uncle Ethan says trying is what matters. Mrs. Ruiz approached slowly. Time to go, mija. Your uncle will be home soon. Sophie hugged Madison one more time. You're coming back right. I'll try. Promise. Madison looked into those enormous brown eyes and couldn't lie. I promise I'll try everything I can. Sophie nodded and took Mrs. Ruiz's hand. They walked away, Sophie looking back 3 times before they disappeared around the corner. Madison sat alone on the bench trying to figure out how to fight for someone who'd explicitly told her to leave him alone. Her phone buzzed. Ethan. How did it go? Madison stared at the message. He'd said he wouldn't be there, but he'd been checking, caring, hoping maybe. She asked me not to give up on you, Madison wrote back. 3 minutes passed. Then, what did you tell her that I'd try everything I could? 5 minutes of silence. Then, don't do this for Sophie. If you're going to try, do it for the right reasons. Madison's heart pounded. What are the right reasons? You tell me. She stared at the phone, crafting and deleting a dozen responses. Finally, she wrote, because I love you. Because I was wrong about how I helped. Because I want to learn how to stand beside you instead of trying to save you. Because Sophie deserves to see what healthy love looks like. Because I've never been more terrified or more certain about anything in my life. She hit send. No response came. Madison sat there for 20 minutes, phone in hand, waiting. Nothing. She drove home feeling like she'd just taken the biggest risk of her life and lost. But at 9 p.m., someone knocked on her door. Ethan stood in the hallway, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain and angry and hopeful all at once. You can't just say things like that over text, he said. I meant every word. I know. That's the problem. He stepped inside and Madison closed the door. Sophie told me what you said about her mom, about the insurance being love, not guilt. It's true. I know it's true. I've been trying to tell her that for months, but she wouldn't believe me. She believed you in 10 minutes. Ethan's voice was rough. Do you know how hard that was? Watching her trust you when she barely trusts me. Ethan, I'm not finished. Sophie came home and told me you promised to try, and she said if I didn't let you try, I was being stupid. He laughed bitterly. My 6-year-old niece called me stupid for pushing you away. She's not wrong. I know. Ethan moved closer. But you have to understand something. I spent 3 months fighting for custody, 3 months proving I could provide for Sophie, 3 months showing the court I was stable and capable and enough. And then I found out none of it was real, that without your money I would have lost. That's not, let me finish. His voice was quiet now. I went home after I left your office. I looked at our apartment, the furniture, the food in the fridge, Sophie's new inhaler, her school supplies, everything I thought I'd provided, and I realized none of it was mine. It was all yours. Madison's throat ached. I never wanted you to feel that way. I know, but I did. I felt like a fraud, like I'd tricked Sophie into thinking I could take care of her when really I couldn't do it without someone else's money. Ethan sat down on Madison's couch exhausted. And then Sophie told me what you said, that her mom loved her enough to make sure she'd be safe even when she was gone. And I realized something. What? That's what you did too. You loved Sophie enough to make sure she'd be safe even if it meant I'd hate you for it. Ethan looked up at her. You didn't help me to make yourself feel good. You helped because a little girl needed saving and you couldn't walk away from that. Madison sat beside him. I also helped because I fell in love with you. Both things are true. When we barely know each other. That night in the parking garage, when you said you didn't see anything tonight, and I realized you'd rather sleep in your truck than let anyone see you weak. Madison's voice shook. I've spent 15 years surrounded by people who only show their best selves. Calculated, polished, fake, and you were the first real person I'd met in years. Ethan turned to face her. I'm not some noble hero. I'm just a guy who got stuck raising his sister's kid because no one else would. You chose her. That's what makes it noble. I chose her because I love her. Exactly. Madison reached for his hand. Ethan, I'm not asking you to be grateful for what I did. I'm asking you to let me be part of your life, not as a savior, not as a benefactor, just as someone who loves you both and wants to help carry the weight. What if I screw this up? What if I can't give you what you need? What if I screw it up? What if I try to fix things again instead of just being present? Madison squeezed his hand. We're both terrified, but maybe that means it matters. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Sophie drew another picture after she got home today. What is it? 3 people under a yellow sun, but this time they were holding hands. And she wrote words at the bottom. Ethan's voice cracked. She wrote my family. Madison felt tears streaming down her face. She already decided, Ethan whispered. She already chose you. And I'm the one who's been too scared to admit I chose you too. That night in the parking garage, when you knocked on my window and you could have walked away, but you didn't. Ethan cupped her face in his hands. I fell in love with you in that moment. And I've been fighting it ever since because I was so sure you'd leave once you realized how broken I am. You're not broken. We're both broken. That's why this might actually work. Ethan leaned his forehead against hers. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let someone love me. I don't know how to accept help without feeling weak. Then we'll learn together. I don't know how to love someone without trying to fix everything. I don't know how to just be present without needing to control the outcome. So we're both disasters. Complete disasters. Madison laughed through her tears. But maybe that's okay. Ethan kissed her. Soft at first, then desperate, like he'd been holding back for months and finally let go. Madison kissed him back, tasting salt and coffee and possibility. When they pulled apart, Ethan said, I can't move in with you, not yet. Sophie needs stability and moving again would confuse her. I know. And I can't let you pay for things. I need to support us myself, even if it's hard, even if it takes time. I understand. And if this gets serious, if we're really doing this, you need to let me contribute equally. I can't be the kept man in this relationship. Okay. Madison took a shaky breath. But you have to let me help sometimes. Not with money, with time, with showing up, with being Sophie's friend and your partner, and just being present. I can try. That's all I'm asking. Just try. Ethan pulled her close. I'm terrified. Me too. Good. At least we're terrified together. They sat there in silence, holding each other, letting themselves feel the weight of what they were beginning. Madison's phone buzzed. A text from Sophie sent from Mrs. Ruiz's phone. Did you fix it yet? Ethan saw it and laughed. She's relentless. Madison typed back, working on it. Your uncle is very stubborn. Sophie's response came immediately. I know. Don't give up. Ethan read it over Madison's shoulder. She's right. Don't give up on me, even when I'm being impossible. I won't if you won't. Deal. They stayed like that until midnight, talking about everything and nothing. About Sophie's school, about Ethan's new job. He'd been hired as a building supervisor at a nonprofit office complex, better pay, better hours. About Madison's foundation and the families they'd helped. About the future they were both terrified to hope for. When Ethan finally left, he kissed Madison at the door and said, Dinner tomorrow. All 3 of us. Nothing fancy, just pizza and a movie at our place. I'd love that. Fair warning, Sophie's going to interrogate you about your intentions. I can handle it. She's tougher than most corporate boards. Good thing I just survived the toughest board in Chicago. Madison smiled. I'm not scared of a 6-year-old. You should be. She's terrifying. But he was smiling when he said it. After he left, Madison stood in her apartment feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real, fragile, terrifying hope. She looked at Sophie's drawing, still taped to her fridge. 3 figures holding hands under a yellow sun. Maybe they could be a family. Maybe broken people could build something whole together. Maybe love didn't require perfection, just presence, just trying, just not giving up. Madison went to bed that night and slept deeply for the first time since the parking garage. When she woke, she had a text from Ethan sent at 6 a.m. Sophie's already planning what movie to watch. She's leaning towards something with princesses. Be prepared. Madison smiled and typed back, I'm ready for anything. Even if she wasn't. Even if this terrified her. Even if everything could still fall apart. She was ready to try. And for the first time in her life, trying felt like enough. Madison arrived at Ethan's apartment at 6 p.m. Carrying flowers and a bottle of wine she immediately realized was too expensive. She left the wine in the car and kept the flowers. Sophie answered the door, wearing a tiara and a cape made from a bedsheet. You're late, Sophie announced. Madison checked her watch. I'm 3 minutes early. Uncle Ethan said you'd be here at 5:57. It's 6 o'clock. That's late. Ethan appeared behind his Sophie, wiping his hands on a dish towel. She's been watching the clock since 5:30. I wanted to make sure she came, Sophie said matter-of-factly. People say they're coming and then they don't. Madison knelt down. I said I'd be here. I'm here. Sophie studied her for a long moment. Then she grabbed Madison's hand and pulled her inside. Come on, I have to show you my room and my toys and my drawings. And Uncle Ethan made pizza, but he burned the first one, so we had to order from the place down the street. But don't tell him I told you. I heard that, Ethan called from the kitchen. You were supposed to not hear it, Sophie yelled back. The apartment was small but warm. Mismatched furniture, drawings taped to the fridge, Sophie's backpack by the door, a life being built piece by piece. Sophie dragged Madison to her bedroom. The walls were covered in drawings, princesses and dragons and families under yellow suns. This one's my favorite, Sophie said, pointing to a picture of 3 people holding hands in front of a small house. That's us. When we get a house with a yard. It's beautiful. Uncle Ethan says we can't afford a house yet, but I'm saving my allowance. Sophie opened a small pink piggy bank. I have $17. Madison's throat tightened. That's a great start. Will you help me save? Sophie, Ethan appeared in the doorway. We talked about this. Madison's not here to give us money. I didn't ask for money. I asked if she'd help me save. Sophie looked at Madison. That's different, right? Right, Madison said carefully. Helping you save means teaching you about budgeting and setting goals, not giving you money. Sophie nodded seriously. Okay, then will you teach me? I'd love to. Dinner was chaotic. Sophie insisted on sitting between them, narrating every bite she took. The pizza was mediocre, the salad was wilted, and Madison had never been happier. Halfway through, Sophie said, Are you Uncle Ethan's girlfriend now? Ethan choked on his water. Sophie, he started, what I'm just asking, kids at school say when grown-ups eat dinner together a lot, it means they're dating. Madison looked at Ethan. He looked back uncertain. We're figuring it out, Madison said gently. What does that mean? It means we like each other, and we're taking things slow to make sure we do it right. Sophie considered this. How slow? Sophie, eat your pizza, Ethan said. I'm just asking questions. Mrs. Ruiz says asking questions is how you learn things. Mrs. Ruiz talks too much, Ethan muttered. After dinner, they watched a movie about a princess who saved herself. Sophie fell asleep 20 minutes in, curled against Madison's side. Madison froze, afraid to move and wake her. Ethan smiled. She does that. Falls asleep the second she feels safe. Should I move? Not unless you want her to wake up cranky. Ethan covered Sophie with a blanket. She hasn't fallen asleep on anyone but me and Mrs. Ruiz since Angela died. Madison looked down at the small girl breathing softly against her shoulder. She's amazing. She's stubborn and bossy and too smart for her own good. Like her uncle. Ethan laughed quietly. Fair. They sat there in silence watching the movie. Neither of them cared about Sophie sleeping between them. When the credits rolled, Ethan carefully picked Sophie up. I'm going to put her to bed. Don't leave. I won't. He carried Sophie to her room. Madison could hear him through the thin walls reading a bedtime story in a soft voice, promising Sophie that tomorrow would be a good day. When he came back, he sat beside Madison on the couch. Closer this time. She likes you, he said. I like her too. No, I mean she really likes you. She asked me this morning if you could come to her school play next month. Madison's heart jumped. What did you tell her? I said I'd ask you. Ethan turned to face her. It's in 4 weeks. It's at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. It's going to be terrible 6-year-olds performing a play about vegetables. But Sophie's a carrot, and she's very proud of it. I'll be there. You don't have to. I want to. Ethan studied her face. You're really doing this, aren't you, showing up for the boring parts? The school plays and the homework and the grocery shopping. That's what love is, isn't it? The boring parts. Most people don't figure that out until it's too late. Madison leaned her head on his shoulder. I spent 15 years chasing exciting parts. Board meetings and investor calls and power lunches. I was miserable. And now I'm sitting in a tiny apartment eating mediocre pizza with a man who burns dinner and a 6-year-old who interrogates me about my intentions. And I've never been less miserable in my life. Ethan kissed the top of her head. I'm still scared. Of what? That you'll wake up one day and realize this isn't enough. That I'm not enough. That a small apartment in a used truck in a ready-made family isn't what you signed up for. Madison sat up to look at him. What if you're the one who realizes I'm too much, too controlling, too intense, too used to getting my way? Then we'll fight about it and figure it out. Ethan took her hand. I'm not saying this will be easy. I'm saying I want to try. So do I. They kissed soft and slow until Madison's phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. You should check that, Ethan said. Madison pulled out her phone. 12 missed calls from Rebecca, 3 voicemails. Something's wrong, Madison said, dialing back. Rebecca answered immediately. Finally, I've been calling for an hour. What happened? Grant Whitaker happened. He just announced Vail Industries is launching their own employee assistance program. He's calling it the Second Chance Initiative. He's using your name, your concept, everything. Madison's stomach dropped. He can't do that. He already did. Press release went out an hour ago. He's positioning himself as the compassionate leader who listened to employee needs. Your resignation isn't mentioned. You're not mentioned. He's taking credit for everything. That son of a... There's more. He's raised $2 million in corporate pledges. Double what you put into your nonprofit. And he's got the PR machine spinning it as Vail Industries, leading the charge for employee welfare. Rebecca's voice was tight. Madison, he's burying you. Your nonprofit looks like a knockoff now. Madison stood pacing. Ethan watched her concern on his face. What do I do? Madison asked. Fight back. Go public. Tell your story. Explain that you're the one who proposed this, that you quit because they rejected it, that Grant stole your idea. That makes me look petty. That makes you look honest. Rebecca paused. Or you let it go. Let Grant have the credit. Focus on your work and ignore the noise. Madison looked at Ethan, at the small apartment he was so proud of, at the life he was building without needing recognition or credit. I let it go, Madison said. What? The point was never getting credit. The point was helping people. If Grant's program helps families like Ethan's, then it doesn't matter whose name is on it. Madison, he stole from you. He stole an idea. Ideas don't belong to anyone. Madison sat back down beside Ethan. I'm not fighting this. I'm focusing on my work. Let Grant have his press release. Rebecca was quiet. You're sure? I'm sure, bam. After hanging up, Ethan said, what was that about? Madison explained. Grant's announcement. The stolen concept. The choice to walk away from the fight. Ethan listened, then said, you're not upset. I'm furious, but fighting Grant means going back into that world. Press releases and statements and corporate politics. I don't want that anymore. What do you want? Madison looked around the apartment. This, you, Sophie, boring Tuesday nights watching terrible movies. School plays about vegetables. A life that matters because of the people in it, not the headlines it generates. Ethan pulled her close. You're absolutely sure, because once you let this go, you can't take it back. I'm sure. Madison kissed him. I spent 15 years building a reputation. It made me successful and empty. I'd rather be unknown and full. 3 months later, Madison stood in the wings of Sophie's school auditorium watching a terrible play about vegetables. Sophie, dressed as a carrot, forgot half her lines and made up the rest. The audience loved her anyway. Ethan stood beside Madison, recording everything on his phone. "She's going to be mortified when she watches this later," he whispered. "She's going to be proud," Madison corrected. When the play ended, Sophie ran off stage directly to them. "Did you see me? Did you see how I saved the scene when Tommy forgot his line?" "You were amazing," Madison said, hugging her. "The best carrot I've ever seen," Ethan added. Sophie beamed. Then she grabbed both their hands. "Come on, we have to take pictures. Mrs. Ruiz is waiting." They spent 20 minutes taking photos. Sophie insisted on specific poses, serious faces, silly faces jumping in the air. Other parents watched with curious expressions. Madison saw the whispers, the former CEO dating her janitor, the scandal that never quite died. She didn't care. On the drive home, Sophie said from the back seat, Madison to, "Yeah, sweetheart. Are you going to live with us?" Madison glanced at Ethan. He kept his eyes on the road, but his jaw tightened. "Why do you ask?" Madison said carefully. "Because you're here all the time, and you have a toothbrush in our bathroom. And yesterday I heard Uncle Ethan tell Mrs. Ruiz that you're the best thing that ever happened to us." Ethan's face flushed. "Sophie, what you did say that, I was right there. You were supposed to be asleep." "I was pretending." Sophie kicked her feet against the seat. "So are you moving in or not?" Madison looked at Ethan. He pulled the truck over, put it in park, and turned to face both of them. "That's not a decision we make without talking about it first," he said to Sophie. "Madison has her own apartment, her own life. We can't just expect her to—" "I want to," Madison interrupted. Ethan's head snapped toward her. "What?" "I want to move in, if you want me to, if Sophie wants me to." Madison's heart pounded. "My lease is up in 2 months. I could renew or I could move in here. Be a real part of this family instead of just visiting." Sophie squealed. "Yes, yes, say yes, Uncle Ethan." Ethan stared at Madison. "Are you serious?" "Completely. This apartment is tiny. You're used to a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows. We have one bathroom and thin walls and neighbors who play music too loud." "I know. And Sophie snores. And I work early mornings. And we're still figuring out how to be together without fighting about who pays for what." "I know all of that." "Then why?" Madison reached for his hand. "Because I spent 41 years living in big empty spaces alone. I'm done with that. I want small spaces filled with people I love." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "You're absolutely insane." "Probably. This is a terrible idea." "Probably. We're going to drive each other crazy." "Definitely." Ethan kissed her hard and desperate while Sophie cheered from the back seat. When they pulled apart, he said, "Move in, but we split rent and utilities and groceries. I'm not letting you pay for everything." "Deal. And you can't rearrange my kitchen. I make no promises." And Sophie gets the final say on paint colors. "I want purple," Sophie announced immediately. "See what you're getting into," Ethan said. Madison laughed. "I see exactly what I'm getting into." 2 months later, Madison stood in Ethan's apartment, their apartment, now surrounded by boxes. She'd sold most of her furniture, donated her expensive clothes, kept only what mattered. Sophie helped unpack, offering commentary on every item. "Why do you have so many coffee mugs?" "I don't know, I just collected them." "We should keep the cat one. Uncle Ethan likes cats." "I don't like cats," Ethan called from the kitchen. "You said you did when I asked if we could get one." "I said maybe. That's not the same as liking them." Madison smiled, listening to them bicker. This was her life now. Small disagreements about cats. Unpacking boxes in a tiny apartment. Building something real from scratch. Her phone rang. "Rebecca." "How's the move?" Rebecca asked. "Chaotic. Perfect." "I have news. Grant's Second Chance initiative just collapsed. Turns out he was using the funds to pad executive bonuses. The scandal broke this morning. The board fired him." Madison sat down slowly. "What?" "It's all over the news. Vail Industries stock dropped 12%. Investors are furious. The board is scrambling to do damage control." Rebecca paused. "They want you back." "What?" "They called me an hour ago. Unofficial inquiry. Would you consider returning as CEO? Full reinstatement, public apology, whatever terms you want." Madison looked around the apartment, at Sophie organizing books by color, at Ethan assembling a bookshelf with instructions spread across the floor. No, Madison said, you don't want to think about it. I don't need to. I'm done with that life. Madison, this is everything you worked for. 15 years of building your career. They're handing it back to you. They're handing me back a job I quit because I didn't want it anymore. Madison's voice was steady. I have a non-profit helping families. I have a family of my own. I have a life that matters. I don't need Vail Industries. Rebecca was quiet. Then she laughed. You've completely changed. I know. I'm proud of you. Thanks, Rebecca, for everything. After hanging up, Ethan asked, what was that about? Madison explained. Grant's fraud, Vail Industries' offer, her refusal. Ethan set down his screwdriver. You turned down CEO Goyum. I turned down a job I don't want anymore. Madison, that's a huge opportunity. So is this, she gestured around the apartment. You and Sophie and building something real. That's the opportunity I want. Ethan crossed the room and kissed her. You're absolutely sure. I've never been more sure of anything. Sophie looked up from her books. Does this mean you're staying forever? If you'll have me. Obviously. Sophie rolled her eyes. You're family now. Family doesn't leave. 6 months later, Ethan proposed in their tiny kitchen while making breakfast. No fancy restaurant, no elaborate plan. Just him, Madison and Sophie eating pancakes on a Sunday morning. Marry me, he said suddenly. Madison mid-bite choked. What? Marry me. Make this official. Let's be a real family. Sophie dropped her fork. Are you serious? I'm serious. Ethan had pulled a small box from his pocket. The ring inside was simple, silver perfect. I saved for 4 months. It's not much. It's everything. Madison was crying. Yes, I'll marry you. Sophie screamed and ran around the apartment. We're getting married. Madison's going to be my aunt or my stepmom. What am I supposed to call her? You can call me Madison, Madison said, laughing through tears. That's boring. I'm calling you Mom. Sophie said it decisively. My real mom is gone, and you're here. So you're Mom now. Madison looked at Ethan. He nodded, eyes wet. Okay, Madison whispered. You can call me Mom. Sophie threw herself at Madison, hugging her tight. Ethan joined them, wrapping his arms around both of them. They stood there in their small kitchen, holding each other, crying and laughing. This was love. Not perfect, not polished, not the fairy tale Madison had once imagined, but real, built from broken pieces, held together by showing up, trying hard, and refusing to give up. 1 year after that night in the parking garage, Madison stood in a courthouse beside Ethan, wearing a simple white dress, promising to love him for the rest of her life. Sophie stood beside them as Flower Girl, wearing a purple dress she'd picked out herself, holding a sign that said, My Family, with 3 stick figures under a yellow sun. Mrs. Ruiz cried in the front row. Rebecca served as maid of honor. The ceremony lasted 10 minutes. The celebration lasted all day. That night, back in their apartment, Sophie asleep in her purple bedroom, Ethan and Madison stood on their small balcony, looking out at the city. Do you ever regret it? Ethan asked. Giving up everything for this? Madison thought about her old life. The penthouse, the power, the emptiness disguised as success. Never, she said. Not even for a second. Even when I burned dinner. Especially when you burned dinner. Ethan pulled her close. I love you. You know that, right? I know. I love you too. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights, feeling the weight of everything they built together. It wasn't the life Madison had planned. It was better. Because it was real. Because it was theirs. Because sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't rescuing someone. It's letting them rescue you back. And somewhere in that tiny apartment, Sophie slept peacefully, dreaming of a future where people didn't leave, where love meant staying, where families were built by choice instead of blood. She was safe, she was loved, she was home. And Madison had finally learned the truth. Her expensive education never taught her that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or job titles or square footage. It's measured in Sunday morning pancakes and terrible school plays and holding hands in small kitchens and loving people brave enough to let you in. Madison had spent her whole life searching for something big enough to fill the emptiness inside her. She'd found it in the smallest, most ordinary moments of all. and she would never let it go.